Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video I'll be going through my round 21 team review, going through how it was another pretty good week for me. Another round rank of inside the top 2k, which is really good, 1601, and then the overall rank of 1490, which again is another green arrow by 254 ranks. I believe my math is correct there. And team value is, I guess you could say, a little bit stagnating at 22.88 million now. Well, it was 22.88 million the round before, but is now 22.96 million. So still gaining 80 grand, but that was mostly due to Nick Dacos dropping 70k due to his injury. That would have made we would have made 130 grand mostly outside of that. So still a team value of 23 million is really good. And before we get into the video, remember to like and subscribe as I quickly just bring up the best teams have 23.7 million, so 700 grand off them, but not really too bad to be honest. And let's get into the video. So Brown scored 24.74 as you would have seen. Let me just also increase the size there. There we go. And let's start with the defenders. I guess the defenders were the shocking part of the week. Well, also a mixed bag because 197, 309, 407, 501, 584, if quick maths serves me right, between all of them. And that sort of isn't really good enough for having 6 premiums there. Obviously, Nick Dacos does sort of stuff that up. We were on track for, I guess you could say 660, 670 if Nick Dacos didn't stuff up. But he had an injury and is out for the rest of the regular season. So I will now be using him down to like a Nick Newman or a Will Day or something like that, as I think those two are the best options. If we look at the defenders now, and bear in mind Nick Newman is the selected guy for the trade, so he won't be in here in any of these metrics, but I will quickly bring up, if I just go to round 22, you'll see here Nick Newman, 118, 114 for L3 and L5. So when we look at other guys, you'll see Bailey Dale is around that marker, 107 and 93, because he copped a couple of bad scores in games 4 and 5. Whitfield is around the marker as well, but there's injury concerns with him, as well as he was tagged out of the Swans game basically with only a 77. Lloyd's concussion issues week in, week out at this point. I know he missed the Bulldogs game after the concussion, and then he copped another heavy hit in the Giants game as well. Will Day, as I was saying, has been pretty consistent and is one of those, I think, the second cab off the rank with Nick Newman, and I'm willing to go against his ownership, I guess, at this point. And is there anyone else really that you can look at? Wayne Miller had a bad game. Ryan had a bad game. Powell's out injured, I think. And Hayden Young you could look at, but I think that's around too early to see his impact in the midfield, and you'd be guessing. And it could go right, obviously. It could go right if you do guess with Hayden Young, but I do think that there's better options rather than going for Hayden Young at this point. But we'll save that further discussion, I guess, for the trade targets video. As I did sort of go in depth a little bit, but I think I can rehash that tomorrow or on Thursday, because this is being recorded on a Tuesday for a Wednesday release. I'll talk on Thursday when we know better the players to go for. Then we move on to Sicily, 160. That was ridiculous. Again, just watching it and just being like, there's Sicily again, and there's Sicily again. Every time it was kicked straight to Sicily. It was like watching Darcy Moore, but also having a guy that takes those, gets the junk kicks as well from the Hawks players, whereas Darcy Moore seems to just get it from the opposition, and that 160 was just huge. Doherty, 112, just did his job in this weird sort of role. I mean, it was sort of midfield, but it was sort of wing, but it was sort of halfback, and it was just this mumbo-jumbo type role, but he got to a 112, which is fine. 7 marks, 6 tackles is a huge effort. What's that? 21, 24, 45 non-disposal points, and then 3 behinds as well. Could have easily gotten a goal or 2 there as well, which would have put him into the 120s, but good enough. Sinclair, 83, just he didn't get tagged out of the game though. That was a weird thing. They didn't have Ed Kerno in the game until late So you can't really credit that there. He just didn't get his hands on the ball much. And yeah, just struggled and was surprising. I mean, the whole St Kilda side was pathetic in that in that last quarter particular. Like we went through it. I think it was today. Recorded it today. The St Kilda Carlton game, and they had 71 disposals I think in the last quarter compared to like 110, 120. And yeah, just didn't get their hands on the footy, and that was the problem. I guess they just couldn't do anything. Then we move over to Tom Stewart here, 94. Yeah, did his job, honestly. A 22-point first half just to get to 94 in the first place. It's fine, honestly. Would have liked him to ton up, but did his job. Bont, 151, missed out on his VC score, which was quite annoying. What do we have here for Bont is my potential captain, even though he will potentially cop a tag from McGuinness. Did he cop a tag against the Hawks last time? Yeah, he did for a 90. So will be interesting. Will be thought through. You also have the potential for a for St Kilda versus Richmond. Is there anyone else that's really ringing a bell? I swear I had this same thought last time, and there was someone that I thought would bring up. But I think Bont and Merritt again could be a good option. You could target this Freo game with a potential Brayshaw. But has Brayshaw scored enough recently? Not really. He did go large against Hawthorn, which was a good sign. Did he go large against West Coast? He only scored a 90 against West Coast, so that's iffy. Is there anyone in the ruck department? You've got Tim English playing the Hawks. That could be interesting. And you've got Marshall playing Richmond, which could be interesting as well because English just played him for a 1-3-1. So you could look there. Could you look at any of the Saints guys? No, not really. I don't think so. Maybe you could at Crouch or something like that, but we'll have to wait and see on that front. But Merritt again is going to be my VC this week, I'm pretty sure, and just did his job against the Eagles and should do well against North Melbourne again. Petrarca 108 did his job. 2 goals, 3 is a little bit annoying that he's racking up the pines and not the goals, but I mean that was his 10th ton in a row. And yeah, just did his job. His low for the year is an 80. I remember going back here and just thinking, I picked wrong with Bont and Petrarca, but those two have been some of the best picks in the comp. Like, I picked Bont and Petrarca out of a starting position of probably, I'm guessing now, the about 15th or 20th, price-wise player. And we've got the number 4 and the number 13. So those have both been profitable investments in those two in the end of the season, especially with Steele being so inconsistent and stuff like that. I mean, Steele was 970 and Petrarca was 906k. So even if just looking at Steele, 99 average and Petrarca 108, that's pretty good. That he has outscored Steele. Still disappointing for a 55. 59. Sorry, the last quarter was pathetic. He started the quarter at 61, and I thought, okay, with a 35 point quarter, he gets a 95. Doesn't look too bad, but just a -2 last quarter is pathetic. So yeah, but it does help next year. I think he'll be back to his best, to be honest, as he has looked back to his best in the last 5 of 112, but last 3 of 103 isn't what I was hoping for, especially when other players in the midfield went quite ridiculous. If we look at the last round here, Wood, no one would have picked up. Green, not many would have had him, to be honest. Sarong, a lot of people could have bargained against Steele with Sarong. And Nash, Hinge, not many. Crouch, not many. Mills, a lot of people traded out of him. Akers, not many had. Berry. I mean, this was sort of this weird round where not many actual high-performing mids did terribly well. I mean, some people have Trelaw, but I just couldn't go for that. With the 2 hamstring issue, and a lot of people would have had Day if they don't have Steele, I guess, at this point. But anyway, nothing you can really do about it. I mean, I would have liked to have had even just Windhager's points, but I can't change that now, obviously. Brayshaw, 106. An interesting game for him against Brisbane. 106 is good enough, to be honest, against such a strong opposition. But coming against West Coast and a depleted Port at Freo, if they do beat West Coast and some results go their way, and there's still a fractional chance of making finals, This game against Port could become, critical at this point, that they need to win. If they win out their season, then they get to 12 wins, and that could be enough. You could, but I don't think it will be. And do they have a draw? I don't think they do have a draw, but I'll just check that whilst going through this. But I don't think they will make finals, but they could. And I think Brayshaw needs to step it up a little bit because Sarong seems to be taking the lead at the moment. Freo's just 8 and 12 at the moment, I believe. So they can... Freo's season is obviously over with that loss to Brisbane. So that those games actually won't matter. But hopefully Brayshaw can show up and they can maybe put a further, divide in the Port season. If Port lose again this week and then lose to... Port have GWS, they could lose that. And then they might even lose to Freo. And they could head into the last round playing Richmond, almost needing a win for top 4 at that point. Crouch 1-2-6 in the first 3, and then Diddley Squat in the last was a little bit annoying, but 1-2-6 you're always going to take no matter how it sort of comes. Darcy Parish 113, job done against West Coast. Need him to score well against North, and could look to trade him away into Rory Laird or something like that in the last round against the likes of a West Coast in the round 24. But could also look at if I bring up, say, Davis Uniac, because that would be North's schedule. You could look at Suns players in round 24, but then again, I wouldn't recommend going for like Miller at this stage. And then we have Liberatore, my pods. Yeah, he did well. Job done, 133, average of 106. That was a huge game, and I'll probably keep him for the rest of the season, to be honest. And has Hawks and then the Eagles. So yeah, could be a potential. Well, Bont will might get tagged again against West Coast, but you're going to need to VC him. You could potentially VC English, depending on the ruck situation at West Coast. Obviously, I do think Bailey Williams will be playing against English in a week or two, but if he isn't, English will honestly go 180 or something like that against Jack Williams. Then we move on to the ruck department. Marshall 116 was fine. English 131, absolutely huge. Those two doing their job. And yes, it does mean that English does flip back into the R1 spot over Marshall. But those two, they're the best two in the game at the moment. And with Gawn being a close behind, but also with the effect of Grundy most likely coming back into the side, that could be good. Because some people did sideways into Gawn, and I did have some thoughts about that. But if Grundy comes back, that could kill Gawn off, which will be good. As that could be 30, 40, 50 points very easily from Marshall, because a lot of people did it with Marshall. Some people might try and get to Jackson, as he has a really good run, but I hope I will be able to cover off Jackson anyway, which should be good enough. Goulden 132, did his job. That was as simple as that. He is becoming such a good... he's going to be the All-Australian winger. Some people will say, he plays too much midfield time, but he's played so much on the wing that, he just plays... He gets his contested ball through... he only had, 6 contested possessions or something like that, but he had 25 uncontested possessions, just roaming free on the wing. Scoring 2 goals as a wingman is huge as well. And when he does go into the middle, he still is a good enough player. So he does deserve that All-Australian, as you can't just put a on-baller out on the wing. But then you've got Dunkley, 81. Just a really weird performance. 5 marks, 8 tackles. I thought he honestly had more tackles than that. They've probably discredited him a tackle or two there, which would have helped to get up to that 90-odd. But then he's about 10, 15 disposals down from his normal. As you can see, his normal is around about that 28 or so, 29 disposals, and he was at 17. So that, say 10 kicks, 10 kicks gets him up to a 111. So, and then he could have potentially had a goal or two, but, But anyway, moves on to the Crows. Collingwood and St Kilda, and we'll see what happens there. Connor Rizzi, 109, fairly good effort from him. Plays GWS next week, and yes, obviously this was a tough game against Geelong, but to come out of there with 4 and 8 marks and tackles wise is good, and then 27 disposals, perfect. Tim Taranto, 99, did his job. I mean, he's sort of just there as a top 6. You got to have him at this point, obviously. As a lot of people do, 72% owned. But you just got to keep him. I don't think there's any use of fading him. He still has 100 last 5 and 97 last 3. So he's still good enough. I think a lot of people are just so used to this 120 output almost, that when he scores at 95, 99, 100, they're like, what is he doing? But he's fine. Cogs, 90, a little bit below what he was producing. His first sort of, I think, bad score for me. Oh, he did score a 91 against Gold Coast. But yeah, I think he'll bounce back. He has Port Adelaide. I think that would be a challenge for them as they sort of got to win to keep their finals hopes alive. As other teams are going to cross, they're going to jump ahead of them this week if they don't win. So I think Stephen Cornelio will take up the challenge and score well. But you also got to factor in the fact that Tom Green's back, so what's the impact going to be on Cogs? And we've seen in the early part of the season with Tom Green he doesn't average as much, so hopefully that doesn't bode the case for the last couple rounds, but we'll wait and see, and I just think we sort of have to ride that one out. Darcy Cameron, 80, and straight out of my team, honestly, that's just what it was. He was always going to be out unless, even with the injury to Dacos, it just meant that Collingwood, I have no one in their game, and Geelong, I only have Stewart, so only Stewart on the Friday night is going to be, my rank's probably going to fall dramatically. Well, I mean, given that if we look at all positions and we look at Collingwood, I don't think there'll be many people with Collingwood players, to be honest. If we look at teams selected by, you got Dacos at 47, not Harvey Harrison, Darcy Cameron, some people still have, Josh Dacos, Tom Mitchell, I don't know if he's even injured, DeGoey, Moore, no one else here really scores well. And then we look over at Geelong as well. I don't think many people have Geelong players as well. Like 7% for Jeremy Cameron. There's no one else here really that people have. So that's going to be such a low rank mover in the fantasy community that this next game, as not many people average well out of Collingwood and Geelong. But on the bench, Wintager does his job again and has the good matchup against Richmond. They won't tag, and hopefully he can do well as St Kilda look to, I guess, in the same boat as GWS, keep the season alive with a win, because if they lose, they could fall out of the 8, and climbing back into the 8 is pretty tough at this point, with so many teams ahead of you that can win, etc., and teams around you with all the draws that a lot of those teams have. It can really mess things up. And then was happy with Ballas and 90 off the bench. Even as a key defender, looks like he can distribute the ball, so we'll have an emergency on him, as Adelaide play relatively early, don't they? They play here, and doesn't mean I can actually get him on the field, I don't believe. But that which will suck, I guess. But unless Banks doesn't play, in which I would be able to then. But we'll have to wait and see on that one if that is the case, as that would mean moving Windhager into the midfield. But there's so many options off the bench, honestly, that it doesn't matter too much. And no one else here really did anything. Williams, 37, some decent cash, and Robert Hanson Jr., just a fail on my part, but doesn't really matter too much. And then Banks, to get a 40 out of him when he wasn't supposed to be playing until about an hour before play, is pretty good, to be honest. And anyway, that is, I guess, the video. And if I switch back there, that's the video, and I will, I guess, see you guys in the trade targets video, which will be uploaded Thursday alongside my tips, and Friday will be the team preview for round 22. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.